Let me get into the next section. So the next section is about interviews. So how does one get ready for an interview, right? So everybody has given interviews, I'm sure, who have joined, or possibly even the students who have joined may not have given a corporate interview, but they would have given some other form of interviews as well. But what we're talking about here is the corporate working of interviews. What happens behind that black hole, so to speak, right? We are all candidates going, and we know HR is talking to us, but what does that really mean? What is exactly happening inside that corporate black hole? And I wanted to open the screen and the curtains a bit for you and show you how this thing works. How do corporates, not just Deloitte where I'm working now, but any other corporate, how do they look at recruiting? How do they hire? So first thing is, any company, what they have is an overall strategy, right? Now, what they do is, based on that strategy, they are building a business plan. So the strategy could be Wipro wants to get into providing more pharma-related services, because now they feel with the COVID situation, if we can support the pharma industry, which will grow, we can get more services revenue, right? So they are creating now a business plan of which one of the legs focuses on the pharmaceutical services. Now, pharmaceutical services for which geography, right? So they have to address the geography. Is it US? Is it Europe? Is it India? Is it a combination? So they would then look at which geographies they need to build the services capabilities, because they need to hire those capabilities within Wipro or train that capability. First, they'll look at the resource pool currently. So today in Wipro, what do I have? Fine, I have 3,000 people who are servicing Mandi Pharma, right? I have 1,000 resources who are servicing AstraZeneca as my client, right? And I have these resources who have some skills in the pharma industry. But the growth that Wipro is looking at possibly is much higher, and they need to identify what are those additional resources and the gap skills that they need to ramp up. So what will happen now is they will have to create a plan as to how many people do they need to hire. And based on that, they will finalize, okay, over the next 6 months, I'm going to hire 5,000 pharma background resources. Now, out of those pharma background resources, 5,000, I don't need all 5,000 to know pharma. I need 3,000 of these to be technical resources, because the technical guy doesn't really need to know pharma industry, but needs to have certain good coding skills, for example, right? So what they have now done is, starting from strategy, they have come up to the point where they know exactly how many resources they want. And if I were to share a simplistic example that I was talking about, so for example, say a company wants to focus on AI tools, right? They say they want to grow this market by 25%. Then they have 5 machine learning engineers, for example, and now they have to hire 10 more, because that's 15 is going to give them that support to that sort of a growth market. So this is a very simple way I'm explaining it, but even if this looks complex to you, the only thing you need to take away from this is that the corporate world actually has a lot of thinking and mathematics behind the resources that they want. Okay, and this is broadly some of the inputs that go into taking this decision. Okay, now what is the process that they follow? Now that they know, fine, I need 20 resources across the year. So what they will typically do is, they will then start talking to HR, and they will raise formal authorization forms with HR, because it has to be a formal process internally also. Okay, so those are typically called RAFs that they raise. And based on that, they will have a recruitment strategy meeting, find what sort of profile do you need, and they will fill up what you would have heard of as called JDs, or job descriptions, right? So the job descriptions you typically see when you apply for a job, that's actually coming from here. It's a discussion and agreement between the hiring manager, which is the person looking for the people, and HR, and they come up with an agreed job description which has your experience needed, skills needed, must have skills, let's call it nice to have skills, and other qualifications. So that entire job description basis has come up in these steps 1 and 2. Then, of course, they post it out, right? Now, now, as you know, there are various ways to post it. They may have job search portals which they post on, or their own company website that they'll post on, or they may use a combination of them. This is where you as a candidate get to see, okay, so this is the job that is coming, right? Once that happens, people start applying. And as they start applying, the resumes start coming in. Now, the screening, and this is important for you to understand, is the actual hiring manager in most cases doesn't do the initial screening of the resumes. In most cases, it goes case to case basis, depends on the level, number of resource candidates, but in most cases they don't look at the resource, the CVs or the applications first. It's the talent acquisition team, right, which is part of HR, but they are not really core HR, but they are more looking at CVs and talent coming in. Okay, so what they do is they will get a bunch of CVs. Say, for example, for a position in Wipro, maybe 15,000 people will apply, but it's only 5 positions. How do they screen? So this is something you have to understand. In most such applications, especially at the junior levels, it's en masse. It's like volume-based applications, okay? They look at keywords. They really don't have time to actually screen through every CV. And even if they did have time, these people don't have the experience to actually make out a difference between a certain Python skill version versus a non-Python skill version, or that level of technicality they do not understand. They may have some ideas because they are part of the hiring team, but they are not the actual people hiring. So they are actually looking for keywords based on that meeting I talked about, item 2, right? So they know they're supposed to look for 10 years experience, this sort of skill, and this is background. So make sure in your resumes, you are putting those keywords in. However, be very careful. Don't overdo it. A lot of times I've rejected CVs which have come to me shortlisted because they have all the keywords. So they know everything in the world, right? So don't do that also. But the areas which you are strong in, make sure those keywords are there, because that's how these people actually search. They really don't have time to review every CV that comes in. Yes, once it's shortlisted and goes to the hiring manager, then it's a more detailed screening of the resume, but that's later. So this is what happens in step 5. The shortlisting of the candidates by the hiring manager function. Okay, so this is talent guy who looks at the CVs, then it comes to the person who's actually doing the hiring. Okay, this person will now get to see the screen CVs only. Okay, and we'll talk about what he'll look at later also. I'm just going through the process for you now. And then you will shortlist, and then you will go through the various processes. Select, and this last step is you get the approval offer. You get the offer, right? Now, what do you need to watch out for? One thing that I told you is watch out for the roles, salary, and business justification. You need to understand what they are looking for and why they need that role. What happens sometimes is we tend to look at, yes, fine, they are looking for this, but why are they looking for this? Let me share an example. In Deloitte, what had happened is we were looking to grow the strategy function, and there was a big announcement as to, Deloitte is getting into more on strategy side, and they're actually focusing on building strategy alignments. And that was a big announcement, especially here in Singapore. So, and then they started to hire people as well. Now, when they started to hire, you should be able to link the two. If you are up to date with the news, you should be able to link the two. In, let's take an India case, that may happen, right? Delivery center is coming up for Google, say in a particular place in India, and you know that's in the news. You then know where to search. You need to look for those jobs in that location for Google, because you know they're looking, right? So that business justification is very important for you to understand why they're looking for that role. Timelines are again very important. So what is the urgency of that role? Okay. Now these are questions you can actually ask and find out also when the initial talent acquisition person is talking to you. Then the advertisement, of course, you, like I talked about, watch out for the advertisement, and I'm sure you look at various sources. A lot of people look at LinkedIn nowadays. There are obviously the usual job sites. I believe Monsters and others are there in India. There are a lot more job sites in India that have coming up, and there are also local job sites as well. Now, and this is not the topic for today, and nor do I have the expertise to tell you that, but that's something that you need to also keep a watch out for. And I'm sure a lot of you already have tabs on these job sites. Also remember, and this is something I wanted to give you a heads up on, and some of you may already know this, a lot of the jobs posted are actually not genuine jobs also. Okay, so a lot of these portals are just trying to get your CVs. So be a bit careful when you see a particular job on one portal for one big company. Try to see whether that same job is applicable across, especially on the company portal also. Because sometimes what happens is that job is actually not there. They're just simply trying to accumulate CVs. Okay, so just be careful on that front as well. You can still share. I'm not saying that you should not. It's just that don't get your hopes up every time you've shared. You can say, you know what, I've shared 5,000 times, but I've got calls only 10 times. That is because out of the 5,000, a lot of those were not genuine. So don't lose your hope just because you've sent to so many people and you have not received back any response, okay? Because that's how the process works. The fourth is screening of applications. I think we'll talk about it a bit more, but I was giving you the basis of which these applications are screened. So make sure that your resumes are not too long. Again, I keep on going into talking about resumes, but that's something that is important as well, apart from the interviews, because your resume is what takes you to the interview. That's your visa to the interview. You don't have the visa, then you don't get an entry into that interview in the first place. Okay. Then of course you have the shortlisting and the offer, right? So before the interview, now you've got ready for the interview. Before the interview, there are certain things you have to watch out for. What are these things that you have to watch out for? Research the company and the hiring manager if it's possible. So in a lot of cases, if you're applying direct, especially, you know very well that's the company, right? If you are also applying on the company portal, you also know the hiring manager name is mentioned. I know in a lot of cases you don't get to see that, but in the cases you do, take that opportunity to research the company and research the hiring manager, right? So for example, if you know on the Deloitte site, you go and see that Sourov Roy is the hiring manager, do some research and we find out what is my experience. Why is that important? For example, if I come from an enterprise background, if I come from a GE background, you know that this guy must be having a quality sort of a mindset, right? So when I talk to him, I must make sure that I bring those things up. So you're trying to understand, you're trying to get that inch of advantage over the other candidate. And that one piece of information that you do research on can actually help you, okay? So it's not just always about, yes, I know these particular skills and I should get the job. It's not always like that, because there are 100 other people who have the same skill as you do. So like I went back earlier, right? You have to be able to differentiate yourself. The second is understand the role and understand what matches and what misses also, because there is no role in the world where you can actually match everything. That role doesn't exist, because when we write roles also, just to let you know, when we write the roles also, we put in everything that we want, and we also know we're not going to get everything. So do not get disheartened. Oh, you know what, I need these three, but these three I don't have, so no point applying. Don't get disheartened, because the hiring manager also knows they're not going to get all those items. They are just looking for a few of those items. As long as they can get few of the more important ones, they are actually fine. Now, if you're applying for a technical Python role and if you don't know Python, then of course it's a problem, right? But if the role says you need to know Python, but you also need to have expertise in pharmaceutical industry, and you don't have a pharmaceutical industry experience, it doesn't rule you out necessarily, because they're looking for technical roles there, right? So go ahead and apply. Don't feel that fine, I meet one part and I don't meet the other. Only caveat is, don't just apply for everything and anything, right? Because then it reduces your CV also, because a lot of times when the talent person is assimilating, he tends to see, oh, this guy's applied for everything that we have on the company side. So this guy doesn't really know what he wants, right? So be very careful to balance that. But the point I'm trying to make here is, assuming you meet the critical needs, don't be too hung about meeting all the criteria, okay? Third is, highlight the matches. Wherever you match, highlight it and try to make your story around that. Why is it important? In an interview, take the interviewer to your strengths. Try to move the interview to your strengths, okay? So for example, you've done certain things well, try to bring the discussion to that, so that gets highlighted more. Now, this is the tricky part. Play in your misses in strategically. There are things that you don't have there, which you also know you don't have. But rather than saying, I can't do that, it's more of saying, I have the basic skills and I'll pick this up because I learn very fast, right? That's a better conversation than, no, this part I don't know how to do, okay? A lot of times people are looking for attitude rather than aptitude. Get insider information where possible. What is insider information? Insider information is get to know more about the company. A lot of places you have friends who are working there, or friends of friends. Try to build that network so you understand what's happening inside that company, because that also helps you. And I do a lot of research when I apply for companies. I do a lot of research on the company itself, how the company is performing, what are they looking at. If I know somebody, try to find out about the culture of the company, because that's also very important, because they're also looking for cultural alignment, okay? So I know I've said a lot of things here, but I think I've picked up these items intentionally because I feel these are very important as you prepare for your interview. Now, let's take an example. You are doing a research on me, right? So you go to my LinkedIn and then you say, oh, this is Sourov Roy, this is what he's done. But don't just stop at the overview. Look at the details where he has got certain skills endorsements. So if you go to the LinkedIn profile, you can actually see skills and endorsements. Who has endorsed him for what? That will give you an insight into that person, right? And what are his skills? Because when he interviews, he'll ask questions on those lines. And I typically do that. When I know my hiring manager, I actually do this level of research. The third thing, of course, is go through the entire experience profile. How long is he in this company? Is he a long time in this company, or is he just joined this company? How does that help? If he's new to that company, he's trying to build his own team, right? So if he's trying to build his own team, then you also know that this is something that he would be looking for people similar or have similar mindset like him to build that up, right? So those sort of cues help you. And of course, look at his activity. Sometimes a lot of them post articles, right? So if the hiring manager is posting something, that's his area of interest. So sometimes what happens is, and I know this particular case where a candidate came talking to me about tennis. And I was like, wow, yes, I love tennis because I really love tennis. And I just clicked with him, nothing to do with work, right? I'm quite sure he did research enough to find out that I actually liked tennis. And that's why he picked that topic up. And that was very smart of him. Again, remember, it's not just because I play tennis and he plays tennis, I liked him. He had other qualifications, but this added to that, okay? And that's what we're talking about. What can give us the edge, right? Especially in these difficult times. Now, what are the key interview areas? So the first obvious thing, I think everybody knows this, right? Tell me about yourself. And the first question will be your introduction. Your introduction has to be to the point and concise. A lot of times, either it's too short or people just go on rambling for 15-20 minutes, right? Where it's just a half an hour, 1 hour interview. So you have to make sure that you get this right, because this is the starting point, right? So when you give your introduction, remember the first slide where I showed you my introduction? Remember to make it a whole rounded experience part of the introduction. What you have done, what are your hard skills, what do you like, what you're passionate about, where do you want to go? So make sure you build that the person can recognize you as an individual. Okay, so build that during the introduction. Understand and research on the company. I'm surprised that a lot of times when I interview people, they have no idea about the company. And I find that quite shocking, because if you're coming to interview, at least take that interest in the company that you're interviewing for, right? Basic things. What was the annual revenue of the company? How many employees does this company have? Which geographies do they operate in? These are basic information which today, thanks to Uncle Google, is available for you readily, right? You just have to put a Google search and it's there. So take that effort. Research not only on the role, but on the company as a whole as well. And of course, like I just talked about the role, understand what the role expects, right? Don't just look at, fine, I need to have this technical skill, I have it good, I'll just talk about this, I have built 5 programs, 2 codes, I'm done, right? Remember to understand what the role is and how that fits into the organization. Okay, so that's very important. And it's important at every level, not just joining at a senior level. Your attitude is very important. A lot of time, like I was saying earlier, we look at attitude more than aptitude, especially at junior levels, because we know knowledge can be built. If that person has the right attitude, we can build knowledge. But if the attitude is not right, however knowledgeable the person is, we'll think 10 times before hiring that person. So your attitude is very, very important. And when I say attitude, I don't just mean bowing your head and saying good morning, sir, good afternoon. So that is not attitude. Attitude is showing what is your personality. Are you somebody who is hungry? You are wanting to give it all. You are willing to work together. You are willing to learn. You're willing to be flexible. Those are attitudinal things. Okay. So remember, this is a very important piece, especially for my audience today, for all of you today. The attitude part is very, very important. And your future plans. Remember to have an idea as to where you want to go, right? Because this is a question that comes typically, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 2 years or 3 years? And you need to have an answer for that. But keep the answer honest. Don't make it a very fluffy Miss World, Miss Universe sort of an answer. Make it very honest. That if you're not sure, say that, sir, I'm not sure what I want, where this will end up, but I can tell you one thing, that I want to see myself grow within the organization. It could be as simple as that also, right? But you need to have an idea as to how you want to progress, because that shows the hunger, and that comes back to attitude as well, okay? So these are 5 things that I wanted to keep for you to keep in mind. What you need to avoid. This is as important as what you need to prepare. Problem child. What's a problem child? And this is where, when we interview, we identify, if we identify somebody as a problem child, that's because that person just talks about his or her problems, right? Oh, this is a problem. Oh, that's a problem. Oh, you know what? I came, sir, I was waiting for 1 hour for the interview, sir. Please help me, sir. I don't have a job, sir. You're becoming a problem child because you're not really trying to be professional, number one. Secondly, you're giving problems. You're not really giving any solutions. So don't be a problem child in an interview. And that's very important, because a lot of people tend to do this. They tend to come and talk about problems, right? If you talk about a problem, make sure you talk about the problem, but give a solution to that problem during that interview. But, sir, I can see this COVID situation is a real issue, but I think this is the way we can actually address it. I may not be 100% right, sir, but I think something we can do about it. That shows that you're not just giving a problem, you're giving a solution to that problem as well. So that's number one. Avoid just talking about problems. Second, this is a problem which all of you will face, past experience. And the mistake you can make here is by saying, sir, actually, I don't have any past experience, so I don't know how I will do this, right? And sometimes they will ask you and test you, well, you know what, Kishore, you're applying for this job, but you don't have any experience. And this is where if you say that, well, yes, you're right, I don't have any past experience, you've fallen into the trap. The hiring manager knows you don't have that experience. There's a reason he's asking you the question. He's asking you the question to see, to the earlier observations, what's your attitude and how hungry you are. And here you need to be able to talk about not just your work experience, but your attitude and your experiences around of it. So for example, yes, you don't have any marketing experience, but you're applying for a marketing job. You said, yes, sir, I don't have marketing experience, but I'm outgoing. I can network well. I can work well as a team. I have good eye for detail. I have actually helped during my student time. I've actually helped organize events. So I have experience, right? Experience doesn't always mean that you have worked for 5 years in a company, okay? So remember not to make the mistake of just aligning it to my past work experience, because that will be a weak footing for you. That will not give you a strong footing. Another mistake I've seen a lot of people make is I have many options. So fine, sir, if I don't, because they may ask you, well, what would you do if you don't get there? Oh, actually, I have a lot of other options. As though you're thinking that if I were to tell that to the interviewer, I'll impress him because, I have so many options, right? But it also shows an approach that you're not giving this job enough importance, right? Even if you have to talk about it, you can always say that, yeah, I'm looking at a few other interviews, which is realistic, right? Everybody will look for interviews, not that you just interview at one place, right? However, having said that, my interest in this particular role is the highest because I really want to pick up this role and work for this organization. So you're saying that, yes, I'm looking because that is very natural, but I'm giving your job and role that importance. Okay? And I have all the answers. We've seen people like that also. They have all the answers, right? So yes, this I know. Yes, that I know. If that happens, we start to suspect this guy says yes to everything, right? So be honest. If you don't know something, say that, no, sir, I don't know this. However, I can pick it up, and that should not be a problem because I know the related areas quite well. Okay. So in an interview, nobody's expecting you to know everything that is being asked to you. Okay. It's only the important things that you need to be able to respond to. And if you don't know something, it's always best to be honest about it. Okay. Don't try to beat around the bush. So these are 4 things you need to avoid as part of the interview. The second, I'm just going to check my WhatsApp to just see if there are any notifications coming in. And if any questions coming in there. Okay, I think this looks fine enough. Okay, so there's one question that is coming in, and I'm just going to read out the question. If we do a background research in hiring manager and it's revealed at the time of interview, will it create a positive impression about me on the hiring manager? Good question, actually. So the question, I will read out the question again. If you're doing a background research on the hiring manager, and sometimes they can get to know, right? Because you are looking at their LinkedIn and they can see who has looked at the LinkedIn profile. If I were the hiring manager, it'll create a good impression. But sometimes, honestly, the hiring manager cannot really link back as to you are the person who is coming to the interview and you have actually looked at my profile. So sometimes they not be able to link it to 2, but whether he knows it or not is good for you, right? That you have done that research. If he picks it up, then it's fine. If he doesn't also, like I said earlier, you've picked up so many things about him that you can highlight those things during your interview. Okay, so that's a question. There is another question. MBA. Okay, so this is a question from Ajinka. So please elaborate on MBA in this period. Is it good or bad? Now, I assume what Ajinka means is that whether doing an interview this time is good or bad. But I'll park this question at the end of the session because we have 10 minutes, and I'd like to have Ajinka himself ask me that question for me to get a little more context, so I can answer his question better at that time. Now, some tips. Let's come to some tips of how to ace the interview. I think this is what everybody is waiting for, right? So, and I did highlight a few of these earlier, to be fair, but I'll still bring those points up here. 4 key points. Solution finder, right? Don't always be the problem guy. Be the solution guy. Everybody's looking for somebody to help them with the solution. So come with solutions. Come with a problem, but with a solution to the problem. COVID situation issue, yes, of course. Unemployment issue, yes, of course. Tough education market, late representation of scores, problem, of course. These are problems the world is facing. US-China problem, yes, of course, these are problems. But in your opinion, how can these problems be resolved? And your answer doesn't have to be perfect, but it's your mindset that you're trying to find a solution, right? So always come across as somebody who's looking to give solutions, okay? Look ahead. Somebody who's forward thinking that, okay, you know, this is what's happening today, tomorrow, I want to do this, tomorrow, this is where the organization, so somebody who's looking ahead, not just looking at his work. And you'll be surprised, even for the most junior of roles, we really give importance to somebody who can actually talk positive, giving solutions and looking ahead. So you don't underestimate the importance of these two, even at junior levels. Be confident but humble. This is again a very delicate line. And a lot of times people come across as being overconfident, and that's a problem. But at the same time, if you're too shy and you're not speaking, that's also not good, right? So it's a delicate balance. It's not easy as saying, yes, be confident but humble. It's not that easy to do, I understand. But what a tip I can give you on this one is be firm, be confident, but don't try to be a know-it-all, that you know everything, right? Because you really don't know everything, and you're not supposed to, and you're not expected to know everything. Sometimes to give that air of confidence, say, you know what, that I've done, sir, for 10 years, sir, I know it, absolutely. But your work experience was 6 years. How you did for 10 years? Oh, actually 6 years. So a lot of times you tend to embellish things as well. And these hiring managers have done this so many times, and they have white hair like me, most of them. So they catch you very fast on these things. So try to be honest and humble in your interviews, okay? But confident. Don't have to sit quietly like this and whisper, okay? So that is also not good. That's not what I mean by when I say humble. The $1 million question is, can I trust you? When I hire you, can I trust you? If I leave everything aside, if I just tell you that one thing that the interviewer is looking at, he's seeing at the end of the day, can he trust you with that job he's giving you? Can a project manager trust you that you will do that deliverable, that milestone, that work that he's given you that needs to finish tonight? Can he trust you to do that? Right? Can the team lead trust that you will help the other people when they are in trouble? Can he trust you to do that? So ultimately, what this is all about, everything, if I leave everything aside, just that one thing, if I want to leave with you, they are essentially trying to answer this one question through that entire interview. Can I trust you? Okay. So remember this, when you go in, you are trying to build a trust. You're trying to create a trust, a bond with that person going in. And it's very difficult. It's not like you're going to spend 10 years with that guy. You have half an hour, right? So in that half an hour, if you can show that you're there to find solutions, if you have done enough research, if you are confident and humble at the same time, you are building that trust, right? And that is where you will get that advantage and that edge over others. Now, we will come to interview simulation. Now, this is the interesting part where we will come to the interviews simulations. Now, Vishwarup and others who are moderating, can you all unmute yourselves, or do I need to unmute you? Let me know on WhatsApp if you can't unmute. Arkaji as well. So I wanted to see if I need to unmute everybody. Let me see. Okay, I need to unmute. Okay, just hold on. Let me get a hold of this. Unmute all. So I've removed the mute restriction now. Harkaji and Vishwarup, can you now unmute yourselves?
Yes, Saurabh, we did that.
Okay.
Hello. So you need 3 participants who can talk to you, right?
Yeah, so we'll go one by one. So the first one, I will go through a particular part of an interview. Then we'll choose a second candidate, a second interview, and a third interview.
Sir, you have to pass on the host to me or someone.
Okay, let me try to see how to do that. Let me pass you the host. Haji, I think I just missed you, just went on top. Just hold on. And I am making you the host now. So you are the host now, Harkar.
Thank you. So now we select a candidate randomly whom you would want to talk.
Yep.
So maybe
in fact, if anybody wants to volunteer themselves, they can put it on the chat as well if they want to be part of the interview.
Yeah, so I have given the rights to all the participants to unmute themselves. So request not all, but either one of you can unmute yourself and start interacting with Saurabh. Anybody?
And while that is happening, I will also share my screen to show you which part I'm talking about. So the first session that I will do, first simulation, will be on when the initial hiring manager calls you. Okay, so that will be what we will cover as part of this mock interview. And let me give another incentive. I'll give 15 minutes dedicated over the next 2 weeks to this to the person, so they can actually have 15 minutes with me over WhatsApp or Skype, and I can help him answer all his questions. So that's an incentive for anybody who comes and does the mock interview.
Okay, let me call Shubham from the group and from the participant. Shubham, can you unmute yourself, please? Shubham? Or maybe Akash Malabadi?
Oh, they are not able to unmute themselves, Harkaji, they're saying. I think you have to let them unmute themselves.
No, they are able to. I given them the rights to unmute themselves.
No, I think you've done the opposite. I actually saw them not being able to. Can you just try again?
Okay, I'll do it again.
Yeah, now you've allowed them to talk.
Hello, sir.
Hello, who's this?
Sir, I'm Ajinkya Thakur.
Hi,
Yeah,
Ajay.
Ajinkya.
How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm great, sir. Thank you.
Good, good, fantastic. Good to be the brave man to come up and do the first interview. And I'll talk to you after this as well. So what we will do, Ajinkya, as a prize for being so brave, we will exchange WhatsApp numbers, and I'll stay in contact with you again after this. And any more questions you have, I'll help you answer. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
let me go back to the presentation to show you the premise of what this interview will be about. Okay.
Okay.
So the interview, Ajinkya, is like this: that you are receiving an initial call from the hiring team. Okay. So they are doing an initial screening with you, trying to understand about you and your experience. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be that talent acquisition person calling you. Okay. And then we will do a role play.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So now I'm giving you a call. Good afternoon, Ajinkya. This is
Good afternoon, sir.
Sourov Roy from XXX Company. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well. We're actually looking to hire a technical consultant in our organization, and we liked your experience, but we just wanted to hear a little more about you. So can you just quickly run me briefly through your experience that you have?
Sir, actually, sir, I didn't got you. You're looking for which role?
I'm looking for a consultant, business analyst consultant role.
So actually, I don't know about the consent role in brief right now. Can I give me another scenario like a different role? Because I don't know about much in that role, so I can't able to explain you.
Okay. What role would you typically apply for, Ajinkya?
So as like business developer marketing one.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So let us assume this is the call for that particular role. Okay. So,
Yes. Okay.
Ajinkya, I believe you have done any relevant business development marketing work. Have you done an MBA as well?
No, sir. I'm looking for it. I just passed out my graduation in the last year. Now I'm looking for taking the admission in the B school. But
Okay.
if you talk about my experience, I've done the many big corporate events and the big arranging the big different seminars in my college during the graduation period. If you talk about some, like I was the part of my training and placement cell in my college, so I was able to, like my responsibility was to arrange the college drives in my college, conducting the whole drive from coming of the HRs to the final results, like whole process used to happen in our college only. And the second one, I was also the sponsorship head and the campaigning head of our college. So I've done, I got our college the many title sponsors like Hero Cycles and all that, the many big brand names. And also arrange the foreign education fair. Like many students are willing to go for the universities to do their MBA or for the technical post graduation abroad, so they don't have big knowledge on it, like which university they should go for, what they are offering, which course actually it is good in that particular university. So we arrange that job university fair so that each students can get a good knowledge on the university they are going for.
Okay. So your experience lies in organizing events and also bringing people together. And also you have helped get sponsorship and funding for large events as well. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's talk about the sponsorship and funding. When you went and got these fundings and sponsorship, what were the main things that you focused on? How did you impress upon the corporate to invest in your event?
So first of all, I didn't have any contacts to go for and directly talk with them. So I used my networks. That I have my like some relatives working in the Hero Cycles. They are on the like big position in that company. So I used their experience. I've given my presentation. I made some presentation slide of my college that how will exactly their cycles will get presented and how all the students will get to know about it. like there are big brands, different types of cycles that at that point of time were coming into the market or not have launched yet. So I called their people and say that you can come to a college with your cycles, with your presentation. We are given a particular area, and like that it happens.
Okay, very good. Did you share any indicative numbers with them in terms of how many footfalls there would be in that event? What would be the demographics that is going to help Hero Cycles to come and take sponsorship there? Can you hear me?
I'm not able to hear you properly. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So my question was, did you share any numbers with the corporates in terms of footfalls of students coming, and in terms of the age group and demographics of students coming, which would interest Hero Cycles? Did you share any numbers with them? Hello, did we lose Ajinka?
It seems to be.
I think we unfortunately lost him. Maybe he just lost his line. But for the benefit of others, let me give you a summary of what were the good things I heard when I was talking to Ajinka, and what are the things that possibly he could work on. So the good thing I heard about him, number one, is he's very relaxed. He's very comfortable. He's very honest and straightforward. If he doesn't know something, he says, this is how it happened. Like, for example, when I asked him about how he formed the network, he said he didn't have direct contacts, but he had through relatives, which is a very honest thing to say, right? So that immediately impressed me about him, right? So when somebody is honest about something and then he explains how you overcame that hurdle, that itself gives you a very good impression. So I really like that. Third is he really talked well about his experiences. Now, what he could have done better is organized that experience a little better. I mean, he talked about things from here and things from there, but like when I played it back to him, if he could have broken it down into those three things, it's a much more organized way of presenting the same thing back. Okay, so that is something that would have helped a bit for Ajinkya. But overall, I can say that he was very confident. He was very relaxed. He could have spoken a little slower, but that is fine. That's a very minor thing. But overall, I can say he did very well. So I think it was a good learning for everybody to see how we can go through such initial screenings. Now, remember that person on the other side is not your actual hiring manager yet. He's just simply doing the screening. Right? So he's trying to reject. He's not trying to actually accept. So his mindset is very different, right? And he doesn't have too much time also. So he has 2-3 things that he wants. Yes, is there, it's not there, it's not there, right? And then he will move on. Okay. So it's very important to be concise in terms of what you put forward to him, that this is 1, 2, 3. And then he gets an idea. Yes, this is there, this is there. Remember I told you about the keyword searches these people do? In his mind, that is what he's doing. Does he have this experience? Does he have that? Does he have that? And then it's done for him, right? I think I'm hearing Ajinkya back again. Are you back again?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to hear what I said about what you did well and what things you can improve on?
Yes, sir. I heard it all.
Great. So all in all, Ajinkya, very well done. Have you attended interviews before? I think you have, because you were so relaxed and comfortable. I'm quite sure you have attended interviews before, right? Hello, did I lose him again? Yeah, he basically froze again. So let's.
Yes, sir. I've heard attended interview before. Yes, right.
Great. So as I was saying, I think 2 things for you to just quickly pick up. I think you did very well. One is try to speak a little slower, because if you speak so fast, a lot of the important things don't register, right? So that's one. Second is, in your experience, just organize it a little better. I know you were not prepared for an interview today, so you just spoke what came to your mind. And I'm sure when it's a formal interview, you will prepare accordingly. So all in all, very good, very confident, and wish you all the best, Ajinkya. And do remember to give Vishwarup and Harkaji your number so that I can link up with you after this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, for sure.
Sure. All right. So that was the first one. Can we get a second interview?
Saurabh,
Yeah.
Mr. Vivek Kulkarni, can you please unmute yourself? Vivek? We have a question from him, Saurabh, which I have sent to you.
Okay.
You can probably read that question and we'll see if he's able to connect.
Sure. Let me see what Mr. Kulkarni's question is. How to remove the fear of first interview? Very, very valid question. I was very fearful in my first one as well, which every candidate faces. So one learning that you saw from Ajinkya for everybody is that he was comfortable because he has done interviews before. So a lot of times it is doing the experience itself you will get more comfortable in. But one of the tried and tested ways that has helped me is preparation. When I prepare, and if I'm nervous, I over prepare. So what I will do is I will replay the interviews. I also do mock interviews. So what I do is I will have my cousins or relatives or somebody who's been an ex-executive who's a mentor to me doing mock interviews with me. Like, sir, if I'm doing an interview on Tuesday, sir, can you play that role with me? Okay. So I actually do that as well, so that I get that fear out. Because when does fear come? Fear comes from unknown, right? If you see a snake, you are fearful. Why? Because you don't know a snake. You don't know whether it will bite you, whether it's poisonous. But if you have worked with snakes before, if you know that this is not a poisonous snake, you will not feel as fearful as you would otherwise, right? So it's all about familiarity. It's all about awareness. It's all about practice, right? So to answer the question for Mr. Kulkarni, it's all about taking that extra effort to be prepared and practicing. So you have various forms of practice. You don't even need somebody. You can actually practice. There's a lot of noise that was coming. I was wondering who that is. So I hope that has answered to an extent what Vivek was asking, but we would have better to have a live chat with him. Is there anybody else who wants to do a live chat on interview? We can do one or two more actually, if anybody wants. Okay, I think people are a bit intimidated to do a live interview, I guess. Any more questions, Harkaji, which are there on the group that I can help answer? Hello?
Yeah, Saurabh.
Yeah.
The another question was there about company says that we'll let you know, and candidate keeps on calling for the reply. What impression this can create about that candidate, and what he should do when he gets in such a situation? Like companies are telling we'll call you and they do not call. So how often a person should call to the company, whether he should call or no, and how often?
That's a very, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we are.
That's a very, very valid question. And I have faced that dilemma myself many times as well. In a hiring managers, especially HR, recruitment, I can tell you, is notorious for that. They don't follow up. A lot of times, if they have moved on to another candidate, they don't let the other candidates know that that position is closed, right? And that poor candidate is with the hope and waiting and trying to follow up and asking. And sometimes you're right, it looks as though that candidate is desperate, right? So one way to do that, where you can balance the two, is So first thing is, when you have that interview, it's always good to ask, because always the interviewer will ask you, do you have any questions, right? So you should be able to ask some pertinent questions, but at the end also ask, sir or ma'am, when can I expect to hear back a response, right? So that you get some idea as to when that is expected. Now, if he says 3 days, 4 days, or if you get some indication, that's great. Sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes they say, well, the HR will get back to you. That's the answer that they give you, right? Now, in that situation, you unfortunately don't have a choice but to go back to HR and ask them. And sometimes they just stop responding. And that happened to me also many times. But what I do is I'll try 1 or 2 times. And the third time, what I'll do is I will write saying that, look, I have other options as well. But however, this one is top of my list, priority. So if you can kindly let me know, then I will decide with my other option. So you actually not sounding desperate, at the same time you're saying that you have other options, at the same time you're trying to get a commitment back. So that at times helps. Even after that, there have been no responses at times, and that happens, then you know that this is not happening, this particular job is not happening, right? So at that stage, you should just move on, right? Because not all companies have the courtesy, professional courtesy, sadly to say so, to actually respond back and give a note. Some organizations are very good that way. Some organization will send you a formal regret email, at least saying, what, thank you for your time. We wish you all the best as you move ahead. However, your experience didn't line up with ours. So some of these companies are very nice about it. They actually respond to you, but a lot of them don't. So for this, my experience has been try thrice and then just move on. I don't think it's going to happen after that. One of them, I can tell you interestingly, came back after 4-5 months. And that's because they said, well, the role was frozen and now it's opened up again. But that's an exception, I can tell you. Mostly it doesn't happen like that.
Thank you, Dada. And there's another interesting question coming from the participants.
Sure.
How do we answer this tricky question of what is expected salary? When the interviewer asks you, what is your expected salary? Then how does one answer? He answers based on his current salary. He answers based on the company. He answers based on his analysis of how much a company can pay. How answer should be, and what should be the rationale or thought process behind demanding the salary? What should be the base idea?
Very, very good question. Very good question, and a very difficult question to answer in terms of when they ask you this question. I can tell you how I go about it. So when these questions are asked, again, I'll try to go back to my junior years and try to answer, because now that is answered very differently. But when these questions were being asked to me when I was junior, typically I used to do a bit of market research, right? So market research in terms of, say, for example, Wipro or Infosys. So I had gone to an Infosys interview. I got an offer, but I didn't join them at that time. But during the Infosys interview, I had a lot of friends from IIM and others who had joined them. So I could do my own background checks as to what is the level of salaries there, right? So I actually had an idea. And for Infosys, as an example, they are very clear. They have a lot, at least that time, they almost had like an equation, right? You have this many years of experience, gives this much of weightage plus this. So they actually used to put a formula into it. So it used to be very difficult to actually negotiate anything over and above that. Having known that, I would typically go around at that time and say I would expect 20 to 25% more from what I'm earning right now during those days, right? These days, if you can ask for 10% also, it's some people think it's a lot. But industry standard nowadays I'm seeing is around 10 to 15%. But again, it may vary. But so you need to first have an idea as to how the salary ranges are. Now, one place very useful is Glassdoor, right? I don't know whether a lot of you use Glassdoor, but Glassdoor actually is a site that actually gives you average salaries for different companies in different regions, right? Now, if it's a smaller company, may not be on Glassdoor, I absolutely agree. But if it's one of the bigger companies like Wipro, Infosys, or those sort of companies on the technology side or on the marketing side, also decently big companies, that you will get there in Glassdoor. Smaller companies, if you need to find out, I think that will boil down to you knowing people around there. So that is the research that helps. The trick of answering is I typically hold off from answering a number as much as I can. Right now, it's a game, right? They will want you to give a number, you try to hold away from a number, right? The easiest way to hold away from a number that I've used is saying, you know what, let us go through the rounds of interview first, and then we can come to that. But sometimes they even press you there. They said, look, if it's beyond the budget, then there's no point having the next round also. So you can have that sort of a difficult permutation where you have to commit. If you can avoid committing at an early stage of salary, my advice is do that by saying that, you know, I am open to that. I would like to decide once we go through the rounds of interviews, because then I will get to know a little more about the company. You'll get to know a little more about me. And at that stage, once we have a satisfaction level, then we can discuss salaries. So I typically push it back to there rather than trying to commit something early. However, if they push you and they want a number and you can't able to get out of it, then I would say go with a market uptake. If you can do a research of the company, then it's better. But if you can't get enough out, then go with a rule of thumb. And this is where possibly the Biswas and the Harkas of the world can help you more of what works in that part. I would typically think 15% would be a fair markup that you would typically ask for.
Okay, Dada, now we are going to take last two questions. We are already, we short past the time.
Sure.
So we'll take last two questions, and we have it coming from, and we'll ask them to ask you directly. So
sure.
Shubham, can you unmute yourself and ask, please?
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Shubham. Good afternoon.
I just wanted to ask one question that sometimes we get question, why should we hire you? So how can we answer that?
So why should we hire you?
Yeah.
Is a very lazy question. So when the interviewer is very busy, will ask you because it's a very broad question. Can Harkaji, can you put others on mute? I'm hearing you.
Shubham, kindly mute your mic, please.
Shubham, when I'm speaking, yeah, thanks. You mute, and then once I speak and you want to respond, you can unmute and then ask me. So to answer that, why should we hire you? That in my mind is a very lazy question, because that they are saying is they don't take the effort of actually asking you the real pertinent questions. But what that means, and a lot of people do ask that question. It's not that just because it's a lazy question, people don't ask that. It's a very common question asked. Now, why should we hire you is basically asking you that, you know, based on your experience, do you have the experience needed to come in to my organization? That is basically what he's supposed to do as part of the interview itself, right? So in the whole interview, he's based on that one thing. So your answer in that particular case needs to be going through, first of all, a brief on your experience that, sir, I have relevant. So the word to use is relevant experience. Relevant means relevancy to that job and to that company, right? So, sir, my relevant experience is this, right? So this is my relevant experience, number one. Number two is, apart from this experience, I bring in other strengths. So talk about your strengths. So why strengths? You are trying to give a perspective to them that is not just about these hard skills. I, as a person, can bring in a lot more. Right. So in terms of attitude, in terms of enterprise, in terms of hard work, I will go back to what Ajinkya also shared. Ajinkya shared the extensive college experience that he had in terms of organization. You can also go back and bring that, because for you all, it's fresh in your mind and it's fresh something that you've done. So bring all of that in. Okay. And then also give him, going back to my earlier slides, if you remember, give him that indication that you are looking to move ahead as a team and be part of the organization, right? And also when you're talking about it, see if you can share some parts that highlight your knowledge of the company. right? So you can say, yes, sir, I know that your company is looking to expand and this is your revenue now and you want to grow and I want to be part of the growth story, sir, right? So you are showing a lot of things. You are showing your skills. You are showing your resiliency to stay. Today, one of the biggest worries that employers have is, will this person stay with me? He will learn all the skills from me and then he'll run away. This is one of the biggest worries that employers have today, right? If you can assure him that you are not that type, where you are here not only to learn and move on, you're here to learn and contribute, right? So that concisely would actually help answer the question. But again, to my mind, if that person is asking a question like that, he is not well prepared in an interview. So he should be more well prepared to ask you specific questions. But I know, being a common question, you would I would recommend to answer it in the way that I just recommended.
Yeah, thank you, Saroda. Now we take one last question.
Sure.
And a question coming from a participant named Nix.
Okay.
So Nix, I would want you to unmute yourself, ask your question, and then again mute yourself so that we don't have much disturbance on the line. Can you ask your question, please? Hello? Nix?
Do we have next question?
Yeah, just a minute. Just a minute.
Hello.
Hi, Nix.
Shubham.
Yes, sir. I just had one more question.
Yep.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
Sometimes they ask that what is your expected salary, and we quote the salary. And after that question, they say, or they ask that why should not we give a salary higher than that or lower than that? Means why XYZ amount only?
Yeah. So that is what I answered. So that is what I was answering earlier. You need to have a basis for that number, right? So one basis you can have is a market standard, right? 15% above what I'm earning. So that's a fair comparison. Number one. Number two is for this particular role. I'm getting. Sorry, Vivek, can you? Thank you. And I think Vivek, yeah, please, thanks. So the second part there of the salary part we're talking about is the role, right? So if you are applying for a project manager role, you know that the industry benchmark for a project manager role salary is so much, right? So you need to. So what are they trying to test? They're trying to test, are you just thrown the number like in the air, or you have done your own research and background check to come up with that number? How solid are you on that number? That is what you're trying to check, right? So as long as you have a clear basis for that number, it is fine, and because you can exactly explain that to them, and you should also go by saying that if you choose to pay me higher, it's fine, because if that is the standard salary for that role, I would respect that and go with that, because you are not in that organization. You don't know what the banding is, and they may actually be paying more for that. So don't close the door on something more. Do say that if your organization pays more for that, I would like it to be fair with the other roles for that particular organization, and I'll respect that.
Yeah, Dada, thank you so much. So let's go for the last question, which I was getting from a participant called Nix. So if he or she is not able to mute and speak, I'll read the question as it is. The person is saying, while interview sometimes we get stuck, like we have no words coming out from us while speaking back to the interviewer. So how to come over through it? So he or she is trying to say that when we are
So I
stuck
am
and they
back.
are absolutely not able to speak, absolutely not able to answer, how to overcome this thing. I guess this is related to the same question what we had earlier, how to overcome the fear of the interview.
Correct. Correct.
So these are more or less the same question. So maybe you can answer this last question, Dada.
Sure. So yeah, it's on the same lines. The fear that typically comes is because of the unknown, right? Because you have not been in a situation like that before. When I went for my interview, and I'll share this honestly with all of you, I don't have any shame in sharing it, is that when I went from an interview at XLRI, so I had my interview in XLRI, and I actually could not utter a word during the interview. I was sweating. So the interview happened for 5 minutes. Then they saw me sweating, and they said, "Do you want to go out and have some water? You're looking very tense." I went out and had some water, and I came back and I completed the interview. But needless to say, I didn't get a call, right? And I realized that was because I wasn't prepared. I had not put myself in that situation. And what you all have to do is put yourself in that difficult situation before, so that at the right time, you can take that situation. Like, for example, right now, Ajinka took that challenge and he opened up and he asked a question. Why? Because he's prepared to work through his fear. So this was an opportunity for others in this group to actually unmute and ask me a question, but you did not because you were fearful, right? So take these challenges, because it's when you prepare and take these challenges, when it comes to when it matters, you are much more confident. You'd rather fail and stutter here than fail and stutter when you actually go for the actual interview. So recapping the points I said earlier, first, prepare. The more you prepare, the more you're confident. Second, role plays. Simulate the interviews. Get somebody to actually simulate the interview with you, some mentor or some friend or somebody senior who's working. It could be your uncle, even your father, right? So do that interview. Play the roles out. Don't take it for granted. Yeah, I actually know, so it should be fine. Don't take it for granted. Don't leave anything to chance, right? And the more you're prepared, the more confident you will be as you go ahead. Now, even after all of this, if the question is asked and you go blank, that can happen, right? Buy some time. The best way to buy some time is to say, "Sir, can you repeat that question again?" So what happens is when he repeats, you are getting time. You're getting more comfortable. You're also getting a better understanding of the question, right? So if you ask him back, and the way to ask him back is, "Sir, so to understand your question clearly, can you just repeat it once so that I have understood it so I can answer it better," right? So that helps to release that blank for you also. Okay, so if you, even after all the preparation, if you come to this, try this method.
Okay, Dada, thank you so much.
Welcome.
And I would like to thank you from all the team of Aabhaso Foundation for conducting such a insightful and wonderful session. And I hope the participants have also benefited, and they would take good learning from the session. And I would like to thank all the participants also for their participation, questions, and maybe we'll try to improve upon certain things on the application which we are using, and we'll try to make it better and better. And all those whose questions could not be answered, I would request you to mail it to us. We would forward it to Saurabh and ensure that you get the precise and proper information on your questions. Should that be okay, Saurabh?
Absolutely fine. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do that, so that you can stay in touch. And Harkaji, just give Ajinka my number also separately, so he can reach.
Yeah, we'll do that. So thank you once again, Saurabh, from myself, all the team, and the participants also.
Thank
you, participants. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted about some other sessions, next sessions, whatever we conduct. And if you all wish to get the updates about further sessions, you need to write us a mail. We don't want to spam your mailbox with mails. And thank you so much. That's it from our side. Stay safe, stay home, wear your mask, and take care, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sourabh.
हेलो सर।
हाँ अजिंक्य बोलो।
सर सर का नंबर उन्होंने बोला था मुझे मिलेगा।
आपका नंबर मेरे पास है, मैं आपको टेक्स्ट करता हूँ।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सो मच।
संदीप भाई और अजय भाई, आप लोग जरा इनको नंबर भेज दीजिएगा। नंबर अपने पास है?
हाँ, श्योर।
अजिंक्य का नंबर। और एक क्वेश्चन आ रहा है अभी, जस्ट अ मिनट। निक्स है LinkedIn account. Nick, you can search him on LinkedIn with his name, Sourov Roy. You'll find him there. And Aabhaso Foundation का email address, जहाँ से आपको mail आया है already, that email ID you can use for asking your questions. And if you all want to have further updates on the further activities and events, we soon plan to have more sessions like this. But those sessions will be stream specific or branch specific or level specific. It won't be a generic one like this. So please mail it to us next that you are interested. We would keep you posted. Okay, Sandeep bhai, Avnish bhai, let's call it off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. Enjoyed.
Thank you.